Good morning, everybody. How are you? It's so good to see you. Welcome. It is Thursday. It is the start of my streaming week. As many of you know, I stream from Thursdays through Mondays, which means that we'll be together for the next 5 days, streaming every morning at 1500 GMT. Well, at least it's my morning. For some of you, I know it's late in the day. I know it's the end of your day. But thank you so much for being here. Really glad we get the opportunity to talk about data science and all those related topics, and really anything else you guys want to talk about. I love keeping our chats open to anything that may come. I love having that type of open discussion. I can't tell you how much I enjoy that as part of this whole data science content creation that I do. So for those of you that are joining us for the first time, welcome. There's plenty of new people joining every single day. So don't be shy. We always ask people to participate in our global roll call. That's where we ask you to let us know your city, state, province, country. Just a nice, easy way for you to introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about you. Also really good for us to practice our professionalism as far as how we introduce ourselves and how we carry ourselves with our persona, if you will, right? Very important as a data scientist, right? If you can't introduce yourself properly, it's going to be really hard to sell your ideas to your stakeholders, right? After that, I give an opening note where I share a couple of thoughts, maybe different things for you to think about or whatnot. And then I just open it up to questions, right? Whatever questions you guys have, whatever questions I can help you with, please let me know. And, if you want to ask about career, about life, about data science, about studies, whatever you'd like, that's the time for it. And again, for me, that's part of the fun, being able to take on all questions. And sometimes I give an answer, sometimes the community gives an answer. Who knows, right? It just depends. It just depends where the conversation takes us. So glad that you're here. Let us know your city, state, province, country, and we'll go from there. Okay? Start filling up my chats. I'm already seeing at least one chat over on YouTube. I think I have all my other chats enabled. I made a couple of changes on my streaming setup. You'd think that by now, I'm like, 7-8 months into this streaming journey. You'd think that by now I'd have everything settled, everything would work perfectly every single time. And let me tell you, that is far from the case. I still make mistakes. So one more thing I want to do is I want to add my introduction on Instagram. I haven't done that yet. So let me add that. All right, and then let me go back to OBS. All right. So I'm seeing a couple of chats over on Instagram that haven't made it to my stream yet. If you're over on Instagram, I think it's Praveen. Praveen, let us know your city, state, province, country, just the way we ask people to introduce themselves. And maybe that'll also make your chat pop up on my side too. For some reason, it's not popping up. All right, so a quick opening note for today. I've been up quite a bit this morning. I've been up since about 4 a.m. I attended a press conference this morning for the upcoming Consumer Electronics Show here in Las Vegas. The press conference was a little bit shorter than I anticipated, but it just reminded me how excited I am for this event coming up. It reminded me of all of the great innovations and great companies that are coming out in the AI space, right? There's a lot of AI developments that are still to come in many aspects of our lives, right? I know that all of us as data scientists, we tend to think of AI as LLMs or as neural networks or as things that we want to examine and maybe build or customize on our own, and that's great. But the reality is that there's going to be a lot of AI innovations, some that you will see, some that you don't see because they kind of, work in the background. And some of those innovations are going to be things that you typically wouldn't think about, right? You wouldn't associate innovation with a toothbrush or with sound speakers or things like that, right? But AI plays a role in some of those items. Because I'm going to go to this show, I have exhibitors sending me press releases ahead of time, or just invitations to talk to their people, visit their booths, things like that. And I'm getting AI from companies that are putting it into lawnmowers, or they're putting AI into your toothbrush, or into the things you use for your ear, the Q-tips for your ear to clean your ears. There are so many different things that are out there coming out in the AI space. Some of them make sense, some of them are a little bit weird, but I wanted to just kind of lay that out as an initial talking point, because we as data scientists, I think, see AI on a different level, but there are so many more opportunities out there for companies to keep on pushing AI in different ways that we're going to see. We're going to start seeing some of those things in the near future. I've been encouraged by the number of AI companies that are out there that are reaching a stage where they can demonstrate their products. Not every company successfully reaches that stage. So I'm really happy with the way things are headed from a technology perspective, from a consumer goods perspective, and from a business perspective, right? Because it's good to have innovation, helps grow businesses, grow economies, things along those lines. So really excited for that. Super excited to be bringing more of that to you guys in terms of the content that I have planned. So keep looking out for that. Lots more information to come on that. CES is 26 days away. 26 days. So that's very, very soon. But hopefully I've done enough prep work to help me be able to bring a lot more information to you during that show. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm really excited about where AI is headed right now. All right, so again, you're welcome to fill up my chat. Let me know your city, state, province, country. Joseph is first. Joseph, it's been a while since you've been first in the chat, so glad you're here, my friend. Joseph says, "Good morning, Dennis. Hope you're well. Glad to be back." Yeah, Joseph. Hope you're doing well too out there. I think in Tennessee. So hope you're doing well. I'm doing very well, thank you. I don't stream on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, so I take the time to work on my business, work on content, work on any number of things, work on personal things. Yesterday, I had to take my dog to the vet, get his final shots. But everything is going well. Thanks so much, Joseph. Osama, our good friend in Satat, says, "Hello, sir. I hope everything is going well." Everything is going very well, Osama. I hope the same for you and your family out there. Rex, our good friend Rex from New York City, says, "Good morning, everyone." Hey, Rex, how are you? Hope you're doing well. Hope New York City is treating you well out there. Going to the opposite end of the coast, opposite end of the country, Denelson in LA says, "Good morning, Dennis. Glad to see you are well. Happy Thursday, everyone." Yeah, what a nice greeting there. Happy Thursday to everyone indeed. So Thursday means we're almost at Friday, which means we're almost at Sunday, and Sunday means that we do our tutorial series. I'm happy to say that this Sunday is most likely our final tutorial in this series. We've gone 11 parts. 11 parts, guys. 11 parts. That is crazy. How did we get to 11 parts? But yeah, I think this Sunday is going to be it. Denelson, in fact, I think it might have been your question in one of our previous tutorials. I think it was you that had asked about writing an article on everything that we've done, right? And that's going to be part of the focus for Sunday. It's going to be a good part of the focus for Sunday. So yeah, I think we're going to do that, and that's going to put a nice wrap up on this series. And then we'll see where we go from there. We'll have a couple of different Sundays there available. We'll definitely start up a new series in the new year. But really excited with all the people that have been contributing to that series. So Thursday leads to Friday, which leads to Sunday. So looking forward to all that with you guys. Okay, we went from Rex in New York to Denelson in LA, and then back to New York with our good friend Leo. Leo says, "Good morning. Hope everyone is doing well." What a nice greeting. Yeah, it's nice when people greet the room, right? Greet the chat, right? So Leo, I hope everyone is doing well too. Hope the same for you. And I think we're gonna have a good day today. Good day today. Manu, we always ask people introduce themselves. Let us know your city, state, province, country, okay? Yassine, how are you, my friend? Yassine says, hello, sir. Yassine from Tangier, Morocco. How are things in Tangier right now, Yassine? Are they cold out there? I mean, I know it's winter, right? For all of the northern hemisphere. But I don't know if it ever gets cold out there because I know it's so close to the equator and all that, right? So it's usually warmer than other places. But Yassine, glad you're here. Hope you're doing well. Hope your classes are going well. But yeah, I think everything is good. It's gonna be a good day today, Yassine. So I'm glad you're here. I was getting some warning messages on my OBS there, but it looks to be okay. Sorry guys, I'm trying out a couple of new things on my broadcasting side. So I was getting a couple of funny looking messages there. Manu from Instagram says, hello from India. Have a great day, sir. Manu, glad you're here. Let us know what part of India. India is a big country. So Manu asks, best way to practice machine learning. It depends. It depends on which portion you want to practice, right? Machine learning has many aspects to it, many independent aspects to it, right? So Manu, it depends. It depends on what you intend to practice with it. Are you practicing the data side, like the data collection and wrangling side? Are you practicing the modeling side, the visualization side? If you have something in mind, let us know. But you have to give us more information, right? What part of it do you want to practice, right? Some people like practicing what they feel the weakest on. Some people like practicing what they feel the strongest on. So let me know what you have in mind. Manoj, our good friend from Bangalore says, good morning, Sir Dennis. Good morning, Sir Dennis and everyone. Manoj from Bangalore, India. Good morning to you too, Manoj. Hope you're doing well out there. Sin, welcome. I think it's your first time over on YouTube. Thank you so much. Sin says hello from Arizona. Nice. That means you are one time zone over from me, which is great. Hope you're doing well. If there's anything we can do for you, any questions you want to ask, now is a great time for it. I usually take open questions after the global roll call. So welcome. Let us know how we can help. Okay, so Manu shares, I live in Agra, the city of the Taj Mahal. Have you heard about the Taj Mahal? Yes, of course. I think I think the Taj Mahal is one of those things that's known all around the world, right? I think it'd be hard to find people who haven't heard of it. I've never visited India. I really want to do that at some point. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're from Agra. So Manu, let us know if you want to specify a little bit more about the aspects of machine learning that you're looking to study, okay? Bubba, welcome. I think it's your first time. Bubba, we always ask people to introduce themselves. Let us know your city, state, province, country. It's a good way to introduce yourself and let us know just a little bit more about you, okay? So thanks for being here, Bubba. Lalman, our good friend Lalman from Nepal says, morning Dennis, we're in Kathmandu, Nepal. Lalman, always good to see you. I know it's late for you over there in Nepal, so thank you so much for checking in. Hope that you're doing well. I'm imagining that Nepal is very cold this time of year, right? I think that's a pretty safe bet. So hope that you're doing well out there. I'm assuming there's snow in Kathmandu, during most parts of the year, right? It's at elevation. It's in a colder climate, but hope you're doing well out there, Lalman. All right, let me double check my Instagram. It looks like Instagram is working okay. So Bubba says, hello, I'm from Toronto, Canada, and work for a large retailer as a junior data scientist. Well, welcome, Bubba. Nice to have you here. Always great to have more Canadian viewers. So Bubba says, good morning. Any discussion around anomaly detection? I have some tracking to do on employee clocks and clock in and out to find suspicious behavior. Okay. All right, I think that's a good question for the chat. If anybody wants to help out Bubba, go ahead and put in your discussions in the chat. I think there's, Bubba, I think this is the type of data science problem that has more than one solution, right? Like this is rarely the type of problem that has a single solution. So I have a couple things in mind, but I always like to hold back because I don't want to bias the chat. So chat, if you guys have any thoughts on anomaly detection for clocking in and out, let me know. I think that, I don't want to, Bubba, I'm not trying to poo-poo your project, right? But it feels like this is one of those projects that some people have in school, like for a data science project, right? Like clocking things in and out, that type of anomaly detection. That seems like a pretty standard school project. But I'm sure that for a large retailer, a lot of workers, there's probably a lot of financial value in that project, right? But chat, if you guys have any initial thoughts on how to help out Bubba, put it in the chat. It's a good question. I'll share my thoughts, but there's many ways, or there's many things you could comment on, right? Do you want to comment on the business side of it? Why would a business want this? Do you want to comment on like a model you would use? Do you want to comment on the data that you would use? Right? Lots of ways to look at this. So I'll give the chat a couple of minutes, Bubba, and then I'll give you my thoughts on this because I think it's an interesting problem. Manu says, please sir, visit India once. Yeah, I'd like to do that. I have some friends there. I've had people who work for me there, but yeah, never quite visited India. Never quite visited. It's quite a long flight, but yeah, I will visit that at some point in my life. Tejala over on Instagram says, hi sir, from Hyderabad, India. Nice, welcome Tejala. Pretty sure it's your first time here. Welcome. You're welcome to let us know how we can help you. If you have a question or something else we can help you. Or Tejala, right now in the chat, the question for the chat is, what are some of the considerations you would use for tracking outliers on employees clocking in and out of work? Right? Seems like a solvable problem for data science, right? I can see why somebody would want to use data science for this, right? So that's the question in front of the chat. Let me know if you guys want to contribute to that. I'll give my thoughts in a little bit. But Tejala, welcome. Anything else we can help you with, let me know, okay? All right, guys. So Bubba is giving his thumbs up. He's ready and waiting for any suggestions that you guys have on clocking in and out. Bubba, I'm curious. Is the data for this going to be readily available? Because when I think of people clocking in and out, I could think of it being done by multiple data systems, right? Maybe some locations are going to have like a where you just like scan your ID. Other places might have like a physical clock, right? Like like you still see those, right? Some places. So if you're coming to me with this project, that's one of the first questions that I'm asking, right? Like, can we get reliable data for this, right? Bubba says one location for the data. There's only one location. Okay. So can I assume that means that the data will be pretty consistent, right? All employees have to use the exact same system, same process, right? Bubba says, yes, it's logged daily. Okay. So again, guys, let me know if you have any suggestions for Bubba. Otherwise, I'm going to start chiming in, and then that's going to start biasing the conversation. So I'm trying to avoid that. So Tejala says, I have knowledge on data science and what are the main topics. Cool, Tejala. So you're welcome to just hang out maybe give some of your thoughts to some of the questions we ask. Or, if there's something else we can help you with, let us know. But we keep the conversation free flowing. We never know, there is no set agenda. We never know where it's going to lead. So, welcome. Thanks for being here. So Bubba says, thankfully, one standard system for the data. Okay. All right, good. All right, the chat's being quiet. There is nobody is chiming in on Bubba's question here. All right, so Bubba, I'm going to start walking through this with you, and we can talk about this, okay? Okay, so Yassine, thank you so much. Yassine says, well, I assume that we don't have data that is labeled as being valid. Okay. Yassine, I like how you're thinking about this. Yassine says that makes it an unsupervised problem. Okay. So this is good. Yassine, I love your thought pattern. I love how you're thinking about it. Well, am I doing a supervised problem or an unsupervised problem? I love that thought pattern. Very fundamental to data science, right? Bubba says correct. Bubba says just time in and out. Okay. Denelson says, sorry, Bubba, I don't have much experience with this type of problem. Hey, Denelson, that's okay. I appreciate that you're willing to recognize your limits and say, hey, you know what? The answer is I don't know. I want to listen in. So thank you, Denelson. All right, so let's go back to Yassine's problem or Yassine's statement. And let's take a quick poll. Even if you don't know the exact answer, just give your gut feeling, right? Give me a 1 in the chat if you think this is a supervised problem, or give me a 0 that if you think it's a well, what did I say? Shoot. Give me a 1 if it's supervised. Give me a 0 if you think it's an unsupervised problem. Right? No, I'm not going to call on anyone. Let me just take a sense for the room. Is this supervised or unsupervised? 1 if it's a supervised problem, a 0 if it's an unsupervised problem. Let me know in the chat. Bubba says, no worries, neither do I. Okay. Yassine says, we have seen with Mr. Dennis that some clustering techniques can be used as anomaly detection models. Yep. So Denelson is voting 0. It is an unsupervised problem. Bubba is voting 1, supervised with feature engineering. Okay. All right. Anybody else? Give me a 1 if it's a supervised problem. Give me a 0 if it's an unsupervised problem. And guys, I'm not going to pick on anyone, right? I'm not calling on anyone. But if you're having trouble knowing what supervised versus unsupervised is, danger, right? Because this is one of the basic questions you're going to ask yourself of any problem. So if you're having trouble answering this, then it might be time to review some of the basics, okay? But that's okay. I'm not calling on anyone. I'm just telling you, I don't know who needs to hear this. But if you're having trouble with this, let me know, okay? Allah Barath, welcome. I think it's your first time. Allah, we always ask people to introduce themselves. Let us know your city, state, province, country, okay? So Joseph is 0 or 1. It depends. Okay. Joseph, if you want to give us your rationale, you're welcome to. You don't have to. But I'm curious on what the depends part is. Lalman says 0. Lalman thinks it's unsupervised. So we got a couple of votes. We got a couple unsupervised, 1 that's supervised. Okay. Last call for votes, guys. Last call for votes. Clocking in and out for anomaly detection. Is that supervised or unsupervised? Let me know, guys. Last call for votes. All right, so while we're waiting for those votes, Bubba, I'm gonna walk through this problem with you. Many places to start, but okay. So Joseph is sharing. I would say this because it would possibly depend on the data type and availability of labeled data. Okay, okay. And Joseph, the reason I asked you for your rationale is because I see it both ways. I think it can be supervised or unsupervised. That's the bottom line. So that's why, the 0 or 1 kind of caught my eye, right? Because that is, I could see it multiple ways. So we're going to rely on Bubba to help us with more information, right? Denelson says, if we have the data for when they are to clock in, then would that change the type of problem this is? Ah, Denelson, yes, absolutely. Denelson, you read my mind because this is exactly where I was going with my first questions to Bubba. Okay? Okay, so Bubba, our new friend from Toronto, we're going to rely on you quite a bit here because we need some background to help us here. Okay? So I think there's many ways to tackle this problem, but my first mind is going to the business side. Okay? So 1, do you have a reason why the business is asking this of you? Like, do they have suspicions about this? And 2, do you have multiple shifts? Right? Because large retailers tend to have multiple shifts. Right? So do we have multiple shifts, and do we know who should be working on those shifts? I assume that because a clocking in and out program may or may not be related to a scheduling program, right? Some companies handle that differently than others, right? Because when you're scheduled to work may or may not be when you clock in or out, right? Those are kind of like two different things. Right? So, Bubba, give us a little bit of that business background because I think that's important here. Business is worried about cheating the clock, and we do have multiple shifts with personnel tracking. Okay. Bubba also adds, yes, we have scheduled times. Denelson says, because at that point we have data that states whether or not the time a person clocked in is matching that at which the person clocked in, or is supposed to clock in compared to when they actually clocked in. That's right. That's right, Denelson. Yep. So that's where it becomes interesting, right? Because if you have that type of information of when they were supposed to clock in versus when they actually clocked in, isn't that kind of, isn't that kind of maybe not clearly, but isn't that kind of approaching a supervised problem? Right? Because now you can make that comparison, right? So also, I kind of made a mistake. I kind of spoke I got a little bit ahead of myself because I mentioned about us thinking about this, whether it's a supervised problem or an unsupervised problem, right? And that is a good question for you to ask when you're faced with a data science problem with a model, right? But what else have I told you guys? From what I have seen, my experience, there are a lot of problems you can solve with analytics. Analytics solves a lot of business problems, right? So I spoke ahead of myself because maybe that's where I should have, maybe we should have been thinking about it at a higher level up. Is this a data science problem? Can we solve this with analytics? I kind of think we can, right? Because, again, going on Denelson's statement about when they were supposed to clock in versus when they did actually clock in, it's kind of analytics, right? And that's okay, right? No need to poo-poo analytics. But maybe we don't even need a model for this, right? Yassine says, but if we have when they're supposed to clock in, when did that make it non-machine? Yassine, you're reading my mind. That's exactly right, right? Maybe this is an analytics problem. Yassine says it's just programming logic. Yeah. Yeah. It could be, right? It very much could be. It is programming logic, okay? But I can think of at least one other way that we can solve this analytically. So let me get you guys to think about that and put your thoughts in the chat. But I think there's one more way that we could solve this analytically. But what do you guys think? Maybe there is no model that's needed here. Maybe as Yassine says, it's just programming logic. Yeah, that's possible. Bubba says we have to allow for normal lateness and identify anomalous behavior. Okay. All right, so let's talk about that. So Bubba, earlier I asked you if there's shifts, right? Like predetermined shifts. There's usually multiple shifts at a company, right? But think about this, chat. And this is for all the chat, not just for Bubba. If I gave you that clocking in and out data, right? If I gave you that data, just like a long list of thousands of rows of when people clocked in and out, couldn't you tell me what the shifts are? Right? You probably could. Even without asking Bubba, without working at the company. Like, couldn't you do that? Like, that's a pretty basic visualization, right? Like, you could probably visualize it and say, oh, okay, it looks like you guys have a shift from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and 12 noon to 8 p.m., right? Like, couldn't you do that? Yassine says, well, this makes me rethink. What do you consider not normal? Asking Bubba. But Yassine, hold on a second, Yassine. You're losing me here because when you're asking that, you're asking for a like a threshold. You're asking for a set value, right? But we're data scientists. We should be shying away from those set thresholds, right? Thresholds are a funny thing, right? They can move. They can be different. So let's stay on the analytics side, Yassine, right? Because I think you're on the right track there. If you have that data, couldn't you figure out when the shifts are? Like, you'd be able to tell, right? Oh, most people clock in at 8 a.m. and they clock out at 4 p.m. Like, we could determine that, right? We're smart. We're scientists. We're supposed to know data, right? We could tell them what the shifts are, right? Sin says isolation forest and set a higher threshold. Okay, but Sin, work with me on a little bit of a higher level than that, right? I think that's getting very granular and nothing wrong with that. But I think that there might be even more straightforward solutions, right? So let's stay with this, guys. If we could do a visualization and figure out when most people are clocking in and out, so, you know, we can determine what the shifts are, then couldn't we also figure out when the average person clocks in and clocks out, the average person? Because if I can tell you that a shift starts at 8 a.m., can't I tell you how many people logged in at 7:59, 7:58, 7:57, 8:01, 8:02, 8:03? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that did that, right? I can tell you the number of people that wait a minute. If I can tell you the number of events that happened at each interval, doesn't that sound like a histogram? Sounds like one to me. And if you can get yourself to a histogram, can't you get yourself to a distribution? You can, right? Yes, Sin, if you're thinking about quartiles, now you're back to the analytics side. I don't think we have to pick a specific quartile, right? But let's just think about this from a distribution side, right? Joseph says a histogram. Yeah. So for those of you, that are not familiar, or maybe you just don't remember the term because histogram is kind of like the old school way to think about it. A histogram basically shows you, it's along the x-axis is some sort of interval, whether it's a time or a grouping or something else. And then the y-axis is a count of that, of the items that belong in those groupings or those intervals. So typically speaking, that's your first examination of something, because then that can lead to a distribution, helps you understand what your data is laid out like. Is it skewed data? Is it normally distributed data? So on and so forth, right? Okay, so Yassine, definitely, yeah. We can even use box plot and consider outliers. Maybe, right? But stick with me on this histogram. If I can get a histogram, I can get to a distribution. And if I can get to a distribution, well, that means I can get to my tails, right? I can tell you who's clocking in early and who's clocking in late, but not by a threshold. I can get to it by the relative rankings, right? By the relative distribution. I shouldn't have said rankings, relative distribution, right? Because now I can tell you what the top and bottom standard deviations are, right? I can now tell you, hey, this person consistently comes out past 3 deviations of when most people clock in. And keep in mind that it's not just about who clocks in late, but maybe you have people that are clocking in too early. Maybe that's a form of fraud detection, right? Why are they coming in so early, so much earlier than everybody else, right? And then same thing with the clocking out, right? Who's doing it too early or who's doing it too late? Why is somebody consistently staying so late? That could also be an indicator of fraud, right? Not all time clock data is about cheating the clock. It could also be about cheating the company, right? Denelson says, I agree with your scene. A box plot seems like the best to use. Maybe. We don't know that, right? Because we don't actually have live data to work with. But to your point, and Yassine's point, using box plots is another analytic way to go about this, right? You don't need a model to determine your box plots, right? Box plots is definitely an analytic-based solution. So I think that there's multiple ways to go about this, but I'm just suggesting that we think about it in basic statistics, right? So think about what that report is like back to your stakeholders. We found that 65% of people, right, or 66% of people clock in between 7:58 and 8:02, right? And we have identified this group of 10 people who are consistently way beyond that, and they're logging in way too early or way too late. And we can show with our data that they are anomalies because everybody else, what would it be, 90% of people, right, are able to log in between these times, but these 5% are too early and these 5% are too late, right? That's another way to do it. Denelson says, do we also have data on the location for where an employee is clocking in? Are they clocking in a block away, or are they clocking in at the parking lot, or are they actually in the office? Yeah, good question, Denelson. Good question. That can also make a difference, right? Where is the clock itself located? Here's another way to go about it that, just kind of pops into my mind. What about if you were what if you were to overlook the early versus the late? What if you just look at the time in between? What was the span of time between the clock in and the clock out? Right? That's a value too, right? And you can say most people spend 8 hours and 25 minutes in between those two times. Well, that's a distribution also, right? Because maybe the company doesn't really care about when you clocked in or out. They just care about how much time you spent actually working. That's also possible. Some companies might say, well, we have a problem with people coming in late, so let's look at the clock. Let's look at the time they clocked in. Well, you can do that, but what if people are leaving early, right? You kind of have to look at both sides. So looking at the span might have more benefit than the actual clock in and clock out. And you reminded me of that, Denelson, because some people might say, well, who cares when I clocked in? I still put in my 8 hours, right? Or I had to do this because of the location of where the clock is. That's also possible, right? So Bubba says, required to be on site to clock in. Yeah, okay, Bubba, we get that, but there could be different, the location of the clock could still have an effect, right? Because I think Denelson is on to a good point there. I'll tell you why I'm enjoying Denelson's mention there. This was a long time ago, maybe like 10, 15 years ago. I read this article that was talking about, why does contraband get into prisons? Drugs, cell phones, stuff like that. And obviously it's because, somebody from the outside is bringing them in, most likely the employees, the prison guards, right? They're involved in that, right? And they were talking about how the unions for these guards are very powerful in these situations. And the unions had resisted the guards being checked every time they come in, right? With a metal detector or the metal wands or checking their bags and all that, right? They had resisted that for a very long time. So one of the ways that they resisted that, or that they kind of, pushed against that, was the location of the time clock. Whether the time clock would be before the X-ray check or after the X-ray check. Because if it was before the X-ray check, then that's okay, because they're getting paid, they're getting compensated for that time. If it was after the X-ray check, they wouldn't be getting paid, right? That check would be on their time. So they use this as a strategy because the state now knew that if they wanted to check all the guards, they would be paying for it essentially, right? Because now you're not getting 8 hours from a guard, you're getting 7.75 hours because the other one is part of the check, right? So that's why I'm liking the mention there, because that can have an effect, right? If I can show that the time clock is significantly further from my workstation than it is for other employees, then was I really late? Maybe not, right? Maybe it's just a function of the layout. So, we're getting a little bit out there, but these are the types of business discussions that you're going to have with your stakeholders. These are the types of business discussions that you would have once you implement your algorithm, your approach, right? Because just because you tell somebody, hey, you're late too much, doesn't mean they're not going to fight back, right? They're going to tell you why, right? So you got to be prepared for these things. Hey, Tej, how are you? Haven't seen you in a while. Morning, Dennis. Tej from Bentonville here. I'm originally from Delhi, India. Yeah, good to see you, Tej. I remember you. Glad to see that you're back. Lallman says, could also look at different time frames, how it fluctuates on years 1, 2, 3. Ooh, Lallman, nice one. Nice one. So Lalman, when we're talking about that, we're talking about seasonality, right? Are there times of year or years that it's more prevalent? So Bubba, this is something for you to consider, right? Seasonality. What is the seasonality like, right? Maybe when it's snowing outside, people tend to be more late, right? That's just the nature of the weather, right? Maybe summer, they tend to be earlier. Maybe summer, they tend to be on time, but they leave earlier, right? Because, it's so nice out. I'm gonna leave 10 minutes early, right? Who cares? But in the winter, they wouldn't do that because nobody wants to drive home in the snow, right? So Lalman, I love you where your thinking is going. I think you're being creative. But yeah, there's a seasonality aspect to it, right? But that's also where the threshold comes back into place that I was mentioning, right? The distributions. Because now you're just doing a different distribution for every month or every quarter or every weather season change, right? You'd have a fall distribution and a summer distribution or something, right? Bubba says, good one. Yeah, it is a good one. But yeah, Bubba, I think there's a lot of ways for you to solve this. I think a lot of them are analytic. I think that a model might be overkill in this situation. I'm not sure you need a model to solve this one. So something for you to consider there. But I think that you can solve this without the need for having a model. I'm gonna propose that to you, that maybe you don't need a model for this one. I think you can solve this analytically. Vivek over on Instagram says, hello, I'm from Thun. Welcome, Vivek. Nice to see you. I think it's your first time here. You're from Thun. Is that a city in India? Or I'm sorry, I don't know where Thun is. But welcome. You're welcome to contribute to our current discussion. We're discussing a problem around solving in and outs, clocking in and out at a company. Vivek says, I'm from Tibet, Ontario, Canada. I'm doing Masters in Computer Science. My question to you is, let us know. Thunder Bay. Okay, Thunder Bay. Thank you. Thunder Bay. Thank you, Vivek. Appreciate that. Good to see you. Bubba says, thanks, I'll go that route. Wait a minute, Bubba. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. We're still talking things out here. The beauty of data science or data problems in general is that there's always more than one way to do things, right? So what about the idea of a time span instead, Bubba? Maybe you shouldn't be looking at the ins and outs. You should just be looking at the time span, the time on site, right? Because again, just because somebody is great at showing up early doesn't mean that they're good at staying, right? So I don't know if it's an international thing, but here in the US, there's a term called coffee badging, where they have employees who come in and they'll have their meetings, they'll have their cups of coffee and all that, but then they leave at noon, right? So maybe you have a problem with employees leaving early, right? You'd never know that unless you looked at the spans too, right? So, and you never know what other ideas people are going to have, right? So guys, before Bubba runs off and does his model, are there any more ideas for Bubba? Some of you mentioned data wrangling, and I think that there are opportunities there. Now that's getting a little bit more into the modeling side, but let's pull on that thread a little more. What other data would you guys want to see for this? Even if you think about it analytically, right? Maybe you want to think about how you would segment your data. What if you were to segment your data into managers versus non-managers? Maybe your managers are coming in late and they're setting the tone, and that's why everybody else is coming in late. Right? Or maybe your managers are coming in early and everybody else is coming in late. So that means you might have a leadership problem, right? They're not motivating their teams, right? You have the wrong leaders in place, right? It could be an indicator of that, right? Or what if you were to segment by time spent at the company? Maybe you're going to find that your more experienced employees are the ones that are consistently on time, and it's your newer employees that are late, right? So, Bubba, let's pump the brakes there. We're only getting started. Lallman says, also compare with quantifiable KPIs, and if it correlates with those KPIs. Okay, Lallman, give me some examples. What KPIs do you have in mind? Let me know. Let me know what you think of there. Yassine says, if I might ask a question, sir, how to deal when the client wants specific objectives, but there is more we can do. That's okay. That's totally okay, Yassine. My goal in most situations is, well, let me take a step back, because I want to reiterate a piece of advice that was given to me that I think is great advice, and I've already given this before, but I want to reinforce it. One of the best bosses that I've worked for, and he was a managing director, he would always tell me, give me something to react to, right? Most of your stakeholders are going to be so busy that they're not going to have time for a full meeting or a full presentation. Just give me something to react to, right? So Yassine, when it comes to things like this, my goal is to always walk into a meeting where all I'm going to do is get a bunch of yes or no answers out of the person, and then it gives me and my team a direction to work in, right? So Yassine, what I want to do, to your question, is I want to walk into a meeting with them and have 3 different options available. At least 3 different options, right? And say, here's the option we can get you with this. It's going to take me this much time. I'm going to need this from you, and I can give you a pretty good answer. If you give me another 2 months, I can get you to this answer, right? And then if you really want to get crazy with it and give me some, new resources and a little bit longer time, this is where I can get you to, right? The bottom line is that you're not choosing, they're choosing. You got to give them options. And if they tell you, well, no, here's what I really want, then that's what you're going to have to do, right? But you have to show them what's possible. You have to show them, what your team is capable of, what the data allows you to do, so on and so forth. What you want to try to avoid is trying to get caught up in having to have an exactly perfect model. Because sometimes, a lot of times you don't need a perfect model to get to a good enough answer for a business application, right? And that's where that feedback is going to come from them, right? Because they're going to tell you, no, I don't need that. I don't need the super crazy answer. I just need a kind of okay answer. So go and do that one, and I'm only giving you 2 months or whatever, right? And that's okay, right? Because that may very well fit the business need they're looking for, right? So Yassine, that's the answer, right? Don't make the decision for them. Give them the options. Let them know what you can do, what is possible, and then let them choose. Excuse me. Lallman says, if someone who is on time or spends more time at the office are getting promoted, meeting their targets. Okay, so you're talking about the KPIs. If someone who is on time or spends more time at the office are getting promoted, meeting their target. I don't know, Lallman. Is that a KPI here? Because what you're talking about is a result of being on time or being late. but that's not necessarily something that's going to help for this type of fraud detection or anomaly detection, right? I don't know, Lalman. I don't know if that fits here. I'm kind of split on that. See, I was thinking more, Lalman, like a KPI would be thinking about the amount of new hires that you've had. Because maybe it's the new hires that are more likely to be late or early or whatever, right? So in other words, I'm using new hires as a leading indicator for whether people are coming in late or not. Whereas with your KPI, as I understand it, I could be wrong, is using the late in or out as a leading indicator to whether they're performing well, right? But if I misunderstood that, let me know. Naaman, we always ask people to let us know their city, state, province, country, okay? Yassine says, thank you, sir. Yeah, Yassine, I hope that helps. But, you know, like I've always told you guys, right? You're a data science team. You're a technical team, not a business team, right? So try to avoid making those business decisions. And when they do when the stakeholder does make those decisions, maybe it's not what you like. Maybe it's not the ideal scenario. Maybe it's not a perfect model. But if it's good enough and you can still demonstrate the business impact that you had, then go for it, right? That's okay. So that's one of the challenging things of being a data scientist, right? That in school you're taught perfection, you're taught the right answer, you're taught the optimal answer, but you don't always need that in the business world. It's a lot more ambiguous, I guess you could say. It's a lot more ambiguous than that. You'd be surprised. Yeah. So I do hope that helps you, Yassine. All right, guys. So last call for suggestions for our friend from Toronto, Bubba, right? Bubba, I hope you're still with us. But I think that there's a lot of ways to tackle this problem. And not all of them are necessarily like some full-blown model, right? Naaman, thanks for the introduction. I'm Naaman Sharma, a final year undergrad student from Mumbai, India. Cool. Welcome, Naaman. Naaman says, what's your review of Google Deep Research? Naaman, I try to not keep up too much with Google because to me, Google is in a distant fifth place when it comes to AI. As a matter of fact, just this morning, I posted a reply to one of their leaders about how, Google seems to be obsessed with context. They're always saying, oh, we have the biggest context in the industry. We handle however many hundreds of gigs they claim for context. I can't remember what it was. It's some ridiculous number, right? So to me, Google is a little misguided right now in AI. They've kind of been caught off guard by companies like OpenAI and Anthropic and all that, right? So I really try to not put too much effort into them because to me, I think they're not headed in a good direction, right? I mean, I told them, that competing on context is like getting yourself ready to compete in a potato sack race. Like, who cares if you win? Like, who cares, right? So that's me. That's my own bias. I'm willing to recognize that, but I'm not interested in researching dead companies. I said what I said. Okay, Bubba says, time for my next meeting. Okay, Bubba, thanks for stopping by. Feel free to come back. Appreciate the interesting question. All right, Naaman gives a thumbs up. Yeah, Naaman, I'm just giving you my thoughts, my bias. I understand people may or may not agree with that, but Google should be embarrassed how far behind they are against some of these companies, right? Leo says, oh, Google, a dead company. Here we go. Leo, I was wondering if you were still around. You were quiet during our discussion with Baba, but as soon as I say anything even remotely exciting, boom, Leo's right there. But guys, I mean, give me the names, all right? In the chat right now, if you guys want. Let's have a quick poll, okay? Give me the names. Give me your list of the companies that Google is beating in AI. List the companies who you think Google is doing AI better than. I'll wait. Do you think that Google is doing a better job than OpenAI? Than Anthropic? Hell, even Grok? I mean, Grok might be ahead of Google AI at this point, right? Okay, Leo is posting 4 dots. You're like, yeah, right? Like, let me think about that one. It might take you a while to come up with even just one name, but in the chat right now, give me the names. I'm taking names. I'll write them down. Give me the names of the companies that Google is beating in AI right now. I'll wait. Leo, you're biasing our chat, but maybe I've done that already. But Leo says Gemini is disgustingly bad. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? And I told you guys this because I saw their late the last big Gemini launch meeting that they had. You know, when they do the web event, and that was their big thing. Oh, we have 200 gigabytes of context. We have more context than anybody else. Context this. You guys know how much 200 gigabytes is? It's like multiple dictionaries. It's like all of Wikipedia times like 500. To the average person, that is a meaningless number. Who's going to use that much context? So to me, when I heard that, I thought these guys are effed. These guys are screwed. If you're competing on context, you've already lost. You just don't know it. I mean, it's horrible. The cloud service is so bad and offers zero support for independent researchers like me. It seems now they're making progress on quantum computing. Are they? Are they, Leo? So Leo, first of all, I agree, right? They do terrible jobs of supporting independent researchers. And I love the way you put that, right? Because all of us should think of ourselves as independent researchers. So I like that Leo is thinking of himself in that way. We all should do that. It seems that they're making progress on quantum computing. Are they, Leo? Are they? I posted an article about quantum computing in the Discord this week. Did you guys catch the little part that was in that article? Did you guys catch that? Because Google has had a couple of articles this week on quantum computing. That's probably why Leo's referring to that. Did you guys catch that little mention that, well, actually there's 2 mentions that caught my eye. One, they're making this big noise over solving a theoretical problem in mathematics that has no human application. And that's not my words, that's their words. They admit that they solved a purely theoretical problem that has no human application. Right? So that's not me bashing Google, that's from the article. The second thing is they acknowledged, or they said, that if there is like one little particle in outer space 10,000 miles away or whatever it is, it would affect the performance of their qubits. Like they solved it, but it's a very, very delicate chip. Like the slightest even ripple in the matrix would like make the chip not work. And then on top of that, it's quantum computing, so the chips have to work at very low temperatures, right? I can't remember what the actual temperature is, but I think they got to approach absolute zero or something like that. I'm not an expert in that. But on top of it being this like hyper cool chip, it's super sensitive to the smallest little ripple in the matrix, right? Like if you breathe wrong, it's gonna make the chip explode or whatever, right? So is that progress? I'm not excited. Anybody excited about that? Let me know, Leo. Maybe you're more optimistic than I am on quantum computing. But if you read that article, like, there's two things in there that were like, really? Like, this is exciting news. All right, our new friend Sin says, I use Power BI to visualize the results of my machine learning analysis in R. I'd like to know what tools big companies use to display their models in production. Can you share some insights? Power BI to visualize the results of my machine, display their model. I assume you mean display their model results in production. Can you share some insights? Yeah, sure. Power BI is a good one. Power BI, Tableau, and MicroStrategy in that order, I would say, are the tools. Power BI, Tableau, and MicroStrategy. Why is that? So, for those of you guys that don't know, you don't buy one copy of Excel or one copy of Word. You buy a license. And I'm sorry, I should have said, when you're a large company, you're not buying one copy of Word, one copy of Excel. You're buying an enterprise license, right? You're buying an enterprise license that gives you a suite of products for the thousands and thousands of people that work for you, right? So that's one of the advantages that Power BI has. That, well, really Microsoft has with any new rollout, that if you're Microsoft and you want to push out this brand new visualization product, and even though you know that Tableau is already out there and Tableau has their customers, you can just look at all your enterprise customers and say, hey, we have this brand new visualization product, and since you're such a great customer, we're going to give it to you for free. And that's how companies end up using Power BI. So Sin, it sounds like you're thinking about, working for a large company. Power BI would be a good choice just for that alone, right? Because if that company uses Excel and Word, which most companies do, they most likely have access to Power BI, and that's what you would be using at a place like that. Okay. Leo says, I'm dying, I'm laughing in the Dunkin' Donuts. That's funny. Leo, what are you doing at Dunkin' Donuts, man? That's all processed junk. It's going to kill you. But yeah, let me know if you have more thoughts on the quantum computing, Leo. Anthony, thanks so much for being here. So guys, if you see a special icon next to Anthony's name, that means he's a member of the channel. You can, I'm inviting you to be a member of my channel. It's $2.99 a month. That's all it costs. $2.99 a month. And it helps, support me, support the content that, that I provide. So Anthony's a member. Thank you so much, Anthony. Really appreciate that. So Anthony says, as long as quantum works, even for a millisecond, able to solve all the problems in the world and put it into firmware, it's good. As long as quantum works once. But Anthony, data is not static, right? We need solutions for a lot of things. There's a lot of problems in the world that need solutions, and those solutions are rarely static, right? So I hear you. I hear where you're going with that, but there's a reason why we keep our computers on 24/7, right? Nobody just goes into a computer, gets an answer, and shuts it down, because we're constantly coming back to it, right? Quantum computing is not going to be any different than that. So, I hear you. It could have some applications where you might build a very, very specific model and you only need it for a brief amount of time. Yeah, okay, but generally speaking, you still need it to be consistent, right? And also, one of the things that I'm concerned about, and I realize that this might be a more minor concern, is the form factor, right? Quantum machines are still very large, very elaborate installations, mostly because of this cooling need that they have, right? I don't see that changing, right? I don't see that changing for multiple decades to come. which means that it won't be widely consumable, right? Do we want that much computing power to be exclusive to the Googles and the IBMs and certain governments of the world? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. And Anthony says you always provide valuable information. Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate that. Yeah, so guys, if you want to support my content, I really appreciate the memberships. It's just $2.99 a month. It's available on your YouTube. But thank you for that. Anthony says it needs to rewrite all structures without the need for any currency, so people no longer need to eliminate others in order to live. Okay, I can appreciate that you're taking a meta view to things in there. It needs to rewrite all structures. Is that what the plans are for you to use it for? Because my understanding is that most quantum problems or advancements are being measured by how quickly they can break hash keys, right? How quickly they can break encryption keys, right? I don't know if that helps rewrite all structures or create more structures, right? So Sin says, what I have been doing is automating, run the analysis, export to SQL, and import to Power BI. Yeah, sure. That's totally fine. Yeah, so you're running the analysis in R. You're taking those model results, putting them into SQL, so it's easily consumable, and import to Power BI. That sounds like a totally reasonable way to go about that. So yeah. Apparently both Leo and Anthony like that last statement. Yeah, guys, I don't know. I fully admit that I am not an expert in quantum computing. But I do feel like we're a very, very far away from like widespread usage, right? Like it's very hard to imagine that you're going to have a quantum machine on your desktop, you know, in any short amount of time, right? Like I think that's still multiple decades away, right? And even to get them to work now, you know, my understanding, it's still challenging, right? You gotta bring the temperature down. It's big installations. Power consumption is still a concern, apparently, in some of these installations, right? I don't know. I don't know how bullish I am on quantum computing. But again, I agree that I'm talking from a place of ignorance. I know this much when there's this much to know. But who knows? Who knows? Leo says the code base is hard, such as how a language is structured, and you're right about who's going to own that whole power. Yeah. I mean, personally, I get a little bit concerned about that because give me the name. And by the way, I'm still waiting for the other Google names, right? I noticed the chat is kind of empty on that, right? So similar question. List me in the chat, give me a list of the countries in the world, of the developing and the third world nations in this world that have some sort of significant quantum computing research effort going on, right? Give me the list of non-first world countries, said another way, non-first world countries that have a significant quantum computing research effort happening right now. I'll wait. I'm curious about AI and quantum in the future. For me, that's a real recipe for AGI. Maybe. I mean, fundamentally, I think you are correct, Leo. But isn't that overkill? It feels like it's overkill, right? Like, we're doing pretty good right now with our existing processing resources in AGI, aren't we? Because the barriers, as I understand them now, are really just around time. Some of these models take a very, very, very long time to train, like multiple months, right? And then I think there's still some supply chain issues on the GPU side. But all other things being equal, it seems like we're doing okay, right? And it feels like going from here to using a quantum machine for that is like a huge step up, right? It's like using a massive fire hose to blow out a matchstick, right? It feels like we're doing okay so far. But maybe you guys feel differently, so let me know in the chat. But Leo, I mean, I think we're doing okay. I don't think we have to have quantum computing to help us with AGI. I think AGI will make a ton of advancements before quantum computing is more widespread. Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. I think that's a safe bet. Landry from Belgium, how are you, my friend? One of my early supporters. Thanks so much for being here, Landry. Hope you're doing well out there in Belgium. Let us know how you've been, how your studies are going, all that good stuff. Leo says, I do. Let's see. Leo, I'm comfortable making that bet. We are going to see 10 times the amount of advancements in consumer level AGI before we see advancements in consumer level quantum computing. I think that's a totally safe bet. But I just don't see that AGI is being held up by a lack of processing power right now. No? But I'm happy to be wrong. But I think we're doing okay. I think we're doing okay without it. All right, guys. So last call for comments on anything. I think we've had some really interesting discussion. I love coming into these meetings like this because you just never know what we're going to talk about. For tomorrow's stream, I have something planned. I have an exercise in mind that I want to walk us through. So I might post something about the Discord, or maybe change the what do you call it? The thumbnail on my chat. But we're gonna do something a little bit different tomorrow. All right, guys. So thank you so much for everything. Thank you so much for being part of the chat. Appreciate all of your support. As always, please take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and I'll see you next time.